So, welcome, guys, to Two Qs with Lisa Ward. I am your host, and today our guest is Miss Laura. So, Laura, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, my name is Laura Dantuma, and I am the owner of Fem Capital Partners. And I guess I'll just get into a little bit about me.
Yeah.
I've always had a strong foundation in business and finance. Finance from day one, from my just out of high school. I started with a finance company, so I say business and finance, but finance strong. So from a young age, I was exposed to my grandfather and my father running the family business. And my preference, ironically, as a little girl, was to sit at the dinner table and listen to them in their heated debates about how to run the business and how to deal with strategy and sharing connections and contacts. And more importantly, I strongly recall them lifting each other up at the end of every conversation. There was that validation that I think us business owners don't get. And so it was my preference to sit around that table, ironically, to have a seat at the table, and soak it all up. But then that carried into my college years, where I was driving back and forth to Northern and working at household finance at the same time, full time, both. And my preference was honestly to work. School was just kind of non-challenging for me. And although I'm a quick learner. I just don't read something and retain it and then go ace the test. It was a struggle from that perspective, but from other perspectives, it was kind of boring to me, and I preferred working. So I just got right into finance. I know if I could do it all over again, I would tell myself never to do that again. Go play as long as you can. But I learned through all of that the power of money, how to manage it, and more importantly, watching my mother on the phone as a young mother. She was only 16 years older than me. Watching her on the phone as she walked through the door from work with a bill collector, negotiating how to pay something that was delinquent, and then going to my grandparents' home for the whole summer or holidays where they were extremely well off, and seeing the two different, completely contrasting ways of life.
Mhm.
I realized that some of that struggle is often based on early decisions and the things that we are or are not taught.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. What we're exposed to.
right, right. So, that was my motivator, believe it or not. When you look back and say, why in God's creation did I get into finance? So I hold an organizational leadership degree. And from those college days, I've amassed 33 years of experience in finance. 33 years. I hate saying that.
Woo!
Yeah, I need to look at it as an accomplishment because it really feels like I've won 33 wars. But it's still hard to believe and hard to say. But those financial services, specifically in mortgage lending. So my background spans from working with financial companies early in my career to executive banking, all the way to third party and correspondent lending realms like commercial and residential.
Mhm. Awesome.
So I built and sold a company after 13 years of ownership, and then later created a joint venture with a Chicago commercial bank. And that was quite the experience. Just having a business valuated and then selling it, the things you learn during those types of exercises it's knowledge that you carry with you for the rest of your life, and it's so applicable in many aspects of life, not just in business. So it's very interesting to me. But Fem Capital Partners, aside from quite literally being my baby, aside from my 3-pound Yorkie, Lulu Bell, is a financial services firm, and it's dedicated to bridging the gap between women in capital, particularly in the realms of residential and commercial. But when I say commercial, I mean commercial from the aspects of building wealth. So multifamily businesses, multifamily buildings, all the way to financing small businesses. So all of that is captured in the products and services that we offer.
Love it.
So, we really understand as women, we're a company for women, focused on women. We lend to everybody equally, but especially since most of our past clients, head of household over the past 33 years was men.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of those men have stuck with us and just keep referring. Now they're referring kids and wives and daughters, and so it's phenomenal. But our focus is on that underserved. So women and minorities that face significant challenges in achieving financial parity. And, looking at those of us that are here at FEM, all of us have experienced the problems that we want to help people through.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So some of the statistics that I throw out to people that often surprise people, and I actually wrote this stuff down for you because I throw them out there loosely in conversation, but to get them all together is challenging. So women are 30% less likely to own homes compared to men.
Oh, I would be interested to see what that looks like generationally, because I feel like my generation is millennials.
Mm-hmm.
We probably own more homes as females than our male counterparts.
You do. And the number is decreasing. Actually, the second largest buyers of homes to Hispanics are single women. So
Wow.
it's very interesting. The numbers would just baffle you if you sat down and really dug deep into them and then started going back through times. It's amazing how it changes. And at times how it didn't change at all for long periods of time. So only 2.2%, this one will really get you. Only 2.2% of all venture capital in 2023 went to female founded companies. I started this business in 2020 and it was at 3%. So COVID actually cost us as women to set back a little bit down to the 2.2 mark. So according to a 2020 study by the National Association of Women Business Owners, women-owned businesses receive only 16% of traditional small business loans. 16%. I mean, it's crazy. And just 4.4% of the total amount of all small business loans. So that's why we exist. I mean, the numbers truly tell us that there's an urgent need for change. We emotionally and from a support perspective are growing faster than the infrastructure is set up to allow us to succeed. And that's what kills me. So it's like, who other than people like you and I and the women that you have on your podcast, who else is going to get out there and do this other than ourselves? So that's the whole reason Femme Capital exists. And it was after COVID, I experienced a layoff from a bank that recruited me, and we were doing fabulous. We were having a banner year, and they did a top-down layoff, and I was like, this cannot ever happen again. It can't happen again. And not only that, but give me a little bit of time to think about something and watch out, world, because I was like, I think I need to do something that fuels me. I mean, just sitting here talking to you, I'm like getting all like, excited about it because there's so much room to move the needle. And I think that's what really gets me. I recently gave a talk in my alma mater all about all about this, all about these numbers. And it was talking to a group of women and minorities about how to manage their financial futures. So all from credit to, all the things, financial advising. I mean, people don't even know who to call for that. And they really don't even know sometimes what it even means.
Yep.
So it's like all of that. And I was dumbfounded further than I thought I could be when I found that women are conditioned in society to discriminate against one another specifically.
Mm-hmm.
So we're conditioned to think that we're catty. So then, are we? Sometimes, right? We're conditioned to compete against each other, but we're not conditioned to lift each other up.
Yeah.
And so what you're doing that I admire so much is you've got that platform now to lift each other up, but more so, it's so educational. The past people you've interviewed that I listened to, I was like, oh, wow, I need to write this down. And here's what's funny about all of them. I'm like, I'm calling her. And then I get to the next one. I'm like, I need to call her.
That's awesome.
It is awesome. It's inspiring. And that's what we need to do for one another.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That lack of representation leads to biased investment decisions, as you well know, and it just perpetuates a further gender gap. And so something that people don't know is that artificial intelligence is programmed by the same people who discriminated by writing guidelines in the past, lending guidelines that discriminated. So it's the same people who programs AI. You write those rules and guidelines, and then you give it to people that program the AI. Sometimes the discrimination is unknowingly, like the AI goes in directions unknowingly, and that's still what we're still trying to learn and figure out. Developers are still trying to get a grip on that. But if you don't know that these biases exist, how do you go into a mortgage application without the knowledge that as a single woman with children, I am potentially going to be discriminated against through the artificial intelligence? So working with somebody like Fem Capital allows you to work with people that have a history of knowledge of how this stuff works, and then more importantly, how to advocate for you.
Right.
And also, we exist to coach ahead of an application. I'm getting more and more women are curious, really curious. Men don't read directions. They also aren't going to call you and say, how do I do this for the future? They'll do it sitting around with a group of men, but they're not going to call a bank and say, hey, I'm going to apply a year from now. How do I?
Right. Oh, exactly. Yeah.
So
I met with a young couple yesterday. They're light years ahead of their generation. They're I think technically Gen Z, maybe, wanting to buy a house, but wanting to make sure they buy correctly so that we're not house poor. Our vacation is our backyard. It's like the fact that you're even asking these questions is amazing.
yes, I mean, seriously, like it excites me when people ask me challenging questions, because I'm like, no one ever asked that, but you know what? I have so much experience. I actually know the answer and would be willingly share it with you. So yeah, it's interesting because we both see the same things, but from totally different viewpoints.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
So this company was literally birthed with that intention of bringing these issues to light, and then pairing them with personalized guidance and knowledge.
I love it. Love it. Love it. You saw the problem and you knew that there needed to be a solution for it. So you created the solution. That's
Yes.
fantastic. Well, we've kind of hinted at some of the answers to your two questions that everybody gets. So the first one is, and I think I probably already know some of the answers now. What do you want that you don't already have?
you do know some of the answers. I don't want to be you in my next life. You're me. So we're at the very beginning stages. Back in 2020, because it was COVID, I had the time to write a business plan that literally is 65 pages long.
Whoa.
Covers all the financial aspects, the growth aspects, the capital aspects, the compliance. You know how that goes.
Mm-hmm.
And so back then, part of the whole plan was, I don't just want to have a lending institution that shows you how to manage your money and borrow against assets.
Mm-hmm.
I want a community where women they feel like it's a warm, welcoming place to go to say, or to ask questions like, hey, I'm in the middle of a mortgage refinance. Do you know how to look at this disclosure? Or I'm in the middle of fundraising for my company. Do you know who I can call? And what are the questions I need to ask? Or, I need financing to grow my business, but my credit is challenged. How do I fix that?
Mm-hmm.
So instead of having to Google and wonder if the answers are right, you go to a community where there's a big group of women that have already done all of this, or have the tools to help you through it, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
And so that the foundation for that community will be our podcast. And
Love it. Okay, good. I was gonna say, this sounds like where we should be going.
Yes, it's not as sophisticated as where you are just yet, but we're heading in that direction. We've had some great interviews, and so once I have that foundation down, I will be able to build this community. But I mean, it's not as easy as it sounds, and that goes back to what I said about women supporting women. You have to want to support another woman to join a community like that, and or need to be supported, right? To join a community like that, and then figure out how to really use it. So it's not just there, you're not just a part of it, but really how to go in and network through it.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how it all comes together. I'm less worried about how, and more focused on the prize at the end, which is just empowered women.
I love that. Well, if I can help in any way, you can reach out.
Yes,
I want to be a part.
I'm sure we will collaborate in some way, shape, or form.
That's fantastic. So once again, you've almost answered the question again prior to me even asking it. So what's holding you back from achieving this massive impact that you're going to have on women across the nation?
Yes.
So what are the next steps? What do we do to help?
I would say my first challenge, which was completely unexpected, was after starting the business in 2020, we had a phenomenal launch. It was just fabulous. And a lot of our past clients came and said, not only do I love the name, and it's mostly men that actually understand it's femme and not femmy, and they love the name and they love the mission, and they're like, hey, we're behind you. What do we have to do? What do you need? And so that's fabulous. And that really helped launch us quickly. And we did very, very well our first year, but then rate hikes.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say that that was what was getting in my way. I've now decided that I'm going to forget about rate hikes, and that tomorrow I'm waking up and the world is going to be a better place regardless, because I can't take it anymore. But the economic environment really pulled us back, and kept me from taking certain resources and applying them to building this community and getting this podcast launched. And the time it takes for you to survive in a new business in a challenging time,
Yeah.
blow your mind. It's like, it's all of your positive energy. So you have to keep refueling yourself. And by the time you're done with that juxtaposed, so to speak, you don't have time to go start something new,
Mhm.
like building a huge community. So that's the first thing. So I think, with these two potential rate decreases, we've already noticed a major uptick in business, particularly the commercial sector,
Hmm.
which is that sector is that it's a mess right now. You talk
Yeah.
to one bank one day and they're pulling back. You talk to another bank and they're doubling down. So nobody knows what the heck is going on right now, and everyone's afraid of what's going to happen.
Mhm.
They're fearing the unknown, really.
Right. We just don't know what's going to happen.
So I think that's the biggest challenge, but the second biggest challenge is just it's just an obstacle of, and I already touched on this a little bit, an obstacle of finding those women and getting in front of them. So like what you're doing, you're pulling those people in that I literally need to help, right? And so it's getting out there and getting exposure to the larger groups. But more importantly, I think what people miss about networking and growing something and having an influence is the fact that you have to impact first. So if I walk into a room and I'm like, gimme, gimme, gimme,
Yeah.
use me, use me, use me. No, I'm going to impact. So I recently joined a women's board, the Mortgage Women's Advisory Board. And I am starting to have impact there. So we start by coaching women into leadership positions and in the financial services, mortgage sector specifically. And so I'm doing more of that type of work, which not only fuels me, but it makes me feel like that's what I'm here to do. It's truly my life's work. Well, 33 years is a whole life for some people, and it's a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience, but I know I can change people's lives by sharing that information. So just finding the women to support one another. But the third issue is just the knowledge of mentorship. So if you need something, do you know where to go to find that?
Yeah.
Do you know what to ask for in a mentor? Do you know? So those are hurdles that I think it's crucial for you to overcome. And it's crucial for your personal growth, for your business's growth, for your professional growth. So trying to figure out how to bridge that gap, which is a whole nother challenge in itself. But I think it starts with looking at those around you and expecting them to support you. Men expect men to support them. They look at their buddies like, hey, you got me, and we look at each other like, I have to go off and do this on my own, because who's going to help me?
Yeah.
They're off.
Which is so strange, but I think that's also how we're wired.
Yeah, that's the programming I spoke of.
Yeah, which is nuts. But guys also like, it's an unspoken, I got your back, you got my back.
Yeah, right.
Like, let's go.
It's so true. So I have gone through this like cleansing since starting the company. And I've looked at all those around me that say, I'm so proud of you. Oh, wow, you've really done a thing this year. Like you did this, you did that. I moved from Chicago to Charleston, just seeking warmer weather and a safer climate. But it's I've looked at each individual and I've said, is that person supporting me in any way? And does that person allow me to support them? Are they open enough, willing enough, and in need enough of my friendship for those reasons? And so I've gone to people I've done business with for 30 years. I've gone to friends all the way down to, hey, I'm going to do this and I'm going on social media. I hate social media. I love it now. I hated it. I hated it. And I hated it because I love to spy, but
Yeah.
I didn't want to be the face.
It's scary to put yourself out there. Yeah.
It's so scary. But then once you do it, you're like, why do I care what so-and-so thinks? And why do I care what, because there's so many other good things happening and so many messages I get from an attorney friend of mine just sent me a message yesterday and said, you are great at what you do on social media and I enjoy seeing what you do. And I was like, wow, that was great. And then today, just before we got on this call, a girlfriend texted me and said, hi, honey, I just wanted to let you know I really enjoy watching your videos. And those are all videos for the company. It's all educational stuff. I mean, sometimes it's me acting a fool, but it's educational things meant to stir your mind or solve a problem for you. Yeah. And so finding that support, I think, is what's going to propel us into this community that I need. It's just hard. You gotta, you're like digging for, did you go watch my video and press a like? And it's like, yeah, they'll give you a charitable like here and there when you beg for it, and then they're gone. So it's like, who really does support you? And so it's important to go through that cleansing and realize it, because then you realize where you should and shouldn't put all your energy. Yeah. And, getting behind the people that support me will bring us all to the next level. So,
yeah. And I think it goes back to wiring, social norms, yada, yada, yada. But we have to get out of our own way to be a cheerleader for somebody else, on social media. Same thing with starting this podcast. Get out of your own way. Just do it.
Do it.
It will be awful initially. Who cares? Somebody will get something out of it. Hopefully.
Like, never knew my eyes were different sizes.
Yeah. But then it's getting back to what you wanted to accomplish anyway.
100%.
Right. Is making the impact. You got to start somewhere. Just do it.
Yeah. And when you focus on the mission and you remind yourself every single time that doubt starts to creep in or somebody challenges your confidence, you just remind yourself that you're impacting others in a positive way. And then all of a sudden, all of that nonsense and noise, I call it, dissipates. So, yeah.
And that's how I've also seen networking as well. If you go in with a true heart, a true purpose, people will smell the salesman from a mile away. So they can tell if you're genuine or not. Yes. But if you genuinely want to help somebody, they remember that and then want to help you even more. I know I'm that way. Like, I love seeing other people's successes. And I will celebrate that more than my own success.
Right. I just was on the phone with one of my longtime best friends, and she's looking to buy a house, and we're waiting for the offer to be accepted. And she's like, I'm like, darn it. And she's like, what? And she starts laughing, and she's like, you think you're more emotionally tied to this deal than I am? And I'm like, I want this so bad for you. You deserve it. And when I hung up, I was like, man, that's the support that you really need as a person. That indirect validation that you need that you're making right decisions.
Yeah. And as business owners, I mean, we have to be both ends of that conversation, which can be so hard and exhausting. So is there, do you have mentors right now that are helping you through all of this?
So I do have a past mentor that was responsible for really propelling my whole career, and helped me open my first mortgage company. But right now, I don't feel like I have a person that I've gone to that I can continue to go to over and over and over again, other than my mother. My father has that fatherly wisdom where, don't go to him with some BS question. You have to know what you're going with. You got to, how they're like, know what you want. Tell me what you're trying to say. So I have to rehearse the question and know before I go to him. But when I do that, he gives me valuable feedback. But my mother gives me that motherly support where I can call her and be like, would you believe this just happened? This is a major setback. No, it's not. You're going to get beyond it. Here's what I think you should do. And it's that voice of reason and calm, motherly, nurturing love. So between the two of them, and then of course, always my brother was really part of the reason for my major success in my first business.
Oh,
He
wow.
worked for the company and was in charge of educating and training for the company, and really just breathed life into the sales team. So I'll call him and I'll say, all right, I've got to meet more people doing this. How do I do it? He's like Mr. Magnet. He walks in a room and everybody's like, shh. And although I might have some of that, I'm the extroverted introvert. He's 100% an extrovert. So I'll call him for the things that I otherwise don't think I can see, and he'll help me through it. But outside of that, I have not found what I'm looking for, but I feel like I'm getting closer, especially since joining this board. And that is a female mentor in business that has done the things that I've done, and I mean, so to speak, and understands where I'm going, and more importantly, understands how to get there. So it's hard to find that. I mean, it's
Gotta find your unicorn. Yeah.
right. It's almost like another one of me, but
Yes.
more experienced, more laid back, like, older. So
I don't know, they'll be more laid back, because if they've achieved more than what you have, or just did it a few years ahead, they might be equally as like a go-getter, like no.
yeah.
There is no stopping. So they're not going to be laid back, probably.
Yeah, true. But that's really where I am. It's an exciting time, and with 2 rate decreases just in front of us, I think that all those resources that we're lacking are flowing back in, and my clarity is resurfacing. So
Awesome. Yeah, no, having family support is huge, or having, that person that you can go and be completely vulnerable with
yes,
is so important, whether that's a parent, a family member, a friend, a colleague.
yes,
Because it can be lonely as a business owner if you're making
very
all the decisions by yourself.
right. And then move to another city
Yeah.
when you're meeting people and they're asking you to go do things, every few days, and you're like, I've run out of excuses for, I'm a business owner in a tough economic time, and my goals are bigger than me going out one night for a drink, 2, 3, that's going to set me back the next day. And then I'm out of work on a Saturday when I otherwise would experience great quiet time excelling. So it's really quite challenging, but it's coming together. I can feel it, and this is what it felt like when my first company really took ground. So it's exciting.
Awesome. So for your new female market, not new, but so if they're listening to this and they're wanting to figure out, how do I grow my business? I'm already established. Capital is looking good, but I've got an idea, but I don't have enough in revenue to get to that next step. Like, what are some indicators within business that would be a good decision to then reach out to a lender to help with that capital?
That's a fabulous question. I mean, I think that the most important thing to do is to understand that calling a lender, a commercial lender, doesn't mean you've already applied for a loan
Mm-hmm.
and you're in a process that you weren't sure you wanted to be in. It can mean just what we talked about before, and that is, hey, I think I'm where I need to be to prime example. I just had a call 2 days ago. I was on the front porch, 7 o'clock at night, having a glass of wine, and I get a phone call, and I'm like, oh no, I'm 5 sips in. This has to be a client. So they are the most wonderful couple. They call me. They have a business in real estate acquisition, and they are looking to expand into commercial and grow it.
Okay.
And so they said, okay, well, we've got experience now. We've got our checking account, our LLCs, our series, our all of that set up. Where do we go from here? And how do we use other people's money
Yep.
to leverage and build this? Now, this is a husband and wife. Do you think that wife, being single, would be coming to me asking me those questions?
Maybe, maybe not. She might not know that that's even an option.
That's my point. So it was such a great question, and I gave them all this information, and the best thing happened at the end of the call, and I know you know this feeling. They were like, I am so glad, the wife said, I am so glad we called you. You are exactly how you were explained, and all of this is valuable information, and I would say we're ready to take the first step with you. And ironically, the first step isn't, here, fill out an application for your commercial loan, which half the people, it's a crazy application, right? So,
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's crazy. It is us taking a step back and saying, hey, let's go manage the company's credit and your personal credit, and let's figure out which structure would be best for you to move toward. So we're probably 60 days off of that application, but if they do what we need them to do in the next 60 days, but they're inspired. They're ready to take that first step of going to do what I mentioned they need to do in order to set them up for the successes of an approval and then growth. And we will be taking an SBA route on a small business that they have, and then we're going individual private commercial bank loans for the other
Nice.
for the real estate multifamily growth.
Okay.
So yeah, it's exciting. It's fun. But that's where it all starts. Make that call and ask for guidance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and knowing the difference, like, there's so many things that we could educate on. It's ridiculous. Like the stuff, content that we need out of our brains onto the internet, like good content, actual education, not, there's plenty of people's opinions out there, which we're all, you can all share your own opinion. That's fine. Cool. But oh, yeah, it's insane. So, okay. So that's for business owners wanting to grow. What about for, unfortunately, I get this example, quite often, getting divorced. And
huge.
now I'm needing to manage the assets myself, managing the finances myself. How do I do that? Especially if it was, I gave up my career, we'll be stereotypical here, to raise the kids, support you in all of your dreams. Now what? I need to know, enter the workforce again. Like, is there a product that then helps somebody that may or may not have been on some of the notes or education tools that are available. It's like, now I'm doing this all by myself. I don't look as good on paper. Like, how do you approach that scenario?
There's that community that we were talking about, right? Now
Mhm.
imagine if you were with a client who said, hey, I'm getting divorced. Hey, we have this community, call into it, or, email into it, all your questions, here's some tools, log in. So that's why we need that community. But it's less what products are out there and more who has the knowledge of divorce buyout or post divorce. I didn't get anything and I need to
Mhm.
go, because there's a lot of that too.
Mhm.
And I need to go start over. How do I do it? And again, it's all another, let's sit down and meet for a coffee or a glass of wine, and I am going to walk you through the first steps. I always suggest, and again, it's getting the message out there. We just filmed a big divorce series.
Oh, perfect.
Not even all the way through it yet. So I've got a couple more things to do, but I always suggest calling before. So, it's when you say, oh, I need to hire a forensic accountant, or
Mhm.
I need to, well, one of those need tos is to call your loan officer or your financial advisor and get your team of people together and have a discussion about what should I do now to make sure I get what I need out of this settlement, and that I know where to put it when I get it.
Mhm.
And if it's, money from rental, maybe they have a couple rental properties and they have to liquidate those. There's, you're gonna have to pay capital gains on that. What do we do? Do we 1031 it? What do we do? Where does it go? All of that should be talked about long before you sign on that dotted line
Mhm.
for that finalization of that divorce. So I feel that the most important call is to call ahead of time. Now, to answer the specific question about what products are out there products out there. Like, you can get a loan with 3.5% down, but more importantly, with 1 month of pay stubs. So are you going back to work? Do you have an employment contract, and can we get pay stubs quickly? You're a month out then if you're a W-2 employee.
Mhm.
And there's other products for self-employed and 1099. We have more products now for the self-employed individual than we did pre-COVID,
Oh
because
yeah. It's
all
rough. It used to be rough.
I know, real rough. All the non-QM products are really quite great. So there are some products out there. There's Freddie Mac has a 1 year tax return situation versus the 2 years of
Mhm.
tax returns. And some of these lenders are now saying, hey, 1 year of self-employment versus two. So there's a lot out there. It's just about tapping the person, the resources that have accessibility to those.
Mhm. Yeah, it's okay to ask for help, and it's okay to feel silly asking questions because you're like, I think I'm supposed to be doing this, but I don't know
Right.
where to start. I think I'm supposed to ask you these questions, but we'll see.
And I love connecting people. So
Mhm.
it's like, yeah, I mean, you're broken, right? Because you kind of break when you go through a divorce. I mean, most people. um, and it's hard to admit that you may not be coming out of it the way you thought you would be.
Right.
So, you might feel less than or whatever, but you're right. It's okay to ask for help. And I think the wise person puts their ego aside and says, hey, if I ask for help and people know I don't know it all, they'll be very willing to help. I mean, by nature, people want to help.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, it's Oof, just the emotions are high and all that fun stuff during that. So anyway, we can stop talking about divorce now.
I know.
Because that could be a whole hour. Like I'm looking forward to the series coming out when you guys post it.
Yes, yes.
Um, has there been a piece of advice that you received in your career that you were like, that was a turning point for you? Like, thank you so much. It makes way more sense now. That was like the big aha moment.
Be what you expect me to say, but my mentor, who I just mentioned in a Q&A that I did, he owned the first mortgage company that I went to work for when I became like all commission. So I left a bank, $50,000 a year job, 401k. I had a, don't laugh, I'm older than you, a Thunderbird. Like I thought that was as high as life could get.
Heck yeah.
You want me to leave my middle management position to come to a all commission loan officer position at a small mortgage company? I worked for a national bank. So anyway, when they showed me what I could potentially make month one, I was like, that is what I make in a year.
Okay.
I quit. So I went to work for him and I was at the very top. There was two of us, two employees that were constantly neck and neck, two women in major competition. And ironically, I've just spoken to her in the last like year. And she's like, I always actually admired you. I'm like, yeah, isn't it a shame that neither one of us could say that to each other back then? Because we were programmed to compete with one another, not by the company, just by society, right? So my mentor was the owner of that company. And I went to him and I said to him, I need to leave and I need to open up my own company. And I seriously was ready to cry when I was telling him because I never wanted to let him down. And he looked at me and he sat back in his chair and I could see the look on his face was like, oh boy. But the strength it took for him to say to me, you know what, Laura, I knew one day this day would come. And I'm only thankful that you were honest and came to me up front. Versus taking my pipeline, which is really the company's pipeline. Loan officers think they own the loan, but they don't. The owner of the company owns the loan.
Right.
The company owns the loan. So taking that business and walking out the door without a non-compete was one option. But I wanted to do right by him because he made you want to do right by him just by being such a fabulous leader. And so he said, I'll help you. So I went off and I called him, who did you call for this? Or here's who you call, here's how you do it. And I was just like, wow, can I get one more question out of him? Can I, it's like talking to my dad, I got to know what I want before I tell him. So I called him up one day and it was like, I had done this probably 5, 6, 7 times before this. And I said, hey, one of my past clients just called. They want this loan. It's his client. And I was going to honor a non-compete even though I didn't have it. So my for a year. And so I said, I want you to have it. He took those loans back happily and rightfully for, I don't know, maybe about 4 or 5 months. And then one day I called him with another one and I was like, hey, it's painful doing the right thing sometimes. I said, I've got another deal. And he said, Laura, take the damn deal. He said, it's yours. Moving forward, take the deal. He's like, you're fine. You did right by the company. You did right by me. And I appreciate that. And that indirect lesson taught me that as long as you do right by people, whether they think you're doing right by them or not, because most people that work for you never think you're doing right by them. Everything you do, they think you're doing against them. That's not always the case, right? It's
They don't see the whole picture.
it's not what motivates me, right? I want people to feel good. And so that constantly plays over in my mind. What would he do? How would he handle this situation? How do I do right by this person so they want to do right by me? The unfortunate lesson I've learned since is that not everyone's going to get that.
Oh, heck no.
Not everybody's going to be motivated by that moral and ethical foundation.
Yeah. Which goes back to networking and finding good people that are there for
So
the community success, not their own success.
Right. So true. So true.
And unfortunately, we get to learn those lessons the hard way occasionally. Yes. Your meter for
yes.
How much of a sleazeball are you?
Yes. Yes. And you'll be amazed at how fast you can how short that meter sways the older you get. You're like, okay, now it doesn't have to go all the way left for me to realize that that's not the person I want to work with or be connected to. So,
well, especially if it's an extension of your business, if you're referring a client to that person and they don't provide similar services, like quality of services. Yeah, no, I'm not sharing my Rolodex with you. Sorry.
No. No, so true. So true.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's really good. That's amazing, especially in a business and the time frame of when you did that's.
I was 20. I opened the business at 26. So yeah, I was 26 when he laid that on me, and somehow I retained it all and was able to see it. So
that's amazing. Yeah. Amazing. Okay, so you've got your podcast coming out at some point in the future. You've got a divorce series. Where can we find all of this wonderful content?
So this content can be found on my personal LinkedIn under Laura C. Dantuma, or TikTok and Instagram is at Loans by Lolo. That's my nickname. And it's those are my personal pages, but we tend to put all the content on the personal page, whereas the business page just has the professional content. So we also have Loans by Fem. So at Loans by Lolo has a lot more. You can see me acting like a fool and all the professional content, or at Loans by Fem for just the professional content.
Awesome. Okay. Fantastic. Good to know those things.
Yes.
So you're on that board. Is there anything else that you're doing, like if you mentoring people or other volunteer opportunities that you're doing that's benefiting the business or just benefiting you as a professional?
Yeah, I just joined a local Charleston professional club that actually has the ability to go into some of the clubs in other states that they have that reciprocity agreement. Is it called reciprocity?
Yeah.
I don't know why that just sounded wrong. Yes, that. And so through that professional club, I am meeting some really neat people. And so I'm hoping that there can be some potential future mentorships toward me and from me. But other than, I think I like to chew up one thing at a time. So the podcast in itself is a lot. And then being on the board, my commitment to that board is that I will mentor. So we're just getting that off the ground. And I think that's more than enough for now. And then probably after the start of 2025, we'll move into where to go to start, propelling that community forward.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to see what that looks like and how it continues to grow. Because I know we will support that heavily.
Thank you.
I mean, the more education, it's stereotypically, and I've heard like awful stories of, the husband took care of the finances for the household. He passes. The wife doesn't even know where we bank. Like worst case scenarios, doesn't know who to call, like estate planning nightmare. So that was one of the reasons why I joined the industry. Was no. We're both at the table. And then educating females post divorce. You can do this.
Right.
You can do it well. It's okay.
Yeah, so true. It's so true. And I think that again, it just goes back to people like you and I see it day in and day out. It's like a doctor, right? People, sometimes even friends, females need my knowledge and support, but they're afraid to ask for it because they think, well, Laura's life is so perfect and she's got everything all under control all the time. It's like, if you really want me to dump on you, I will.
I don't think you want that though.
But number two, if you can't let that go and ask for help, you are leaving a valuable resource of knowledge that I've gained that is untappable, especially for friends, but that I can continue to give you over time. So yeah, I think that just the divorce series will be very interesting, but it's again, it's all about leveling this playing field called our financial picture, building wealth and understanding it as women from the time you get married. I would never hand the keys to my car over to anybody and say, take it wherever you want to go, whenever you want to go. I would say, hey, let's set some milestones and some rules and some boundaries, and let's understand that if you're going to pay the bills, I get an update every single month.
Yeah, I mean, you should be a part of it together.
Right.
How can we, both bring something?
There's so many ways to structure it, but staying in the know and having access to everything equally is
Vital.
Vital is a great word too. So.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Yes. Yes. Awesome. Okay. Last little nugget. If there's one piece of advice you give to anybody who's listening when it comes to all things finance related, lending related, what's that little nugget?
All things lending related. Ooh, that's not where I thought you were going to go. I think all things lending related, you have to ask for help. So, being able to sit down and figure out where you want to be and in what time period, and then being less worried about what the steps are, how you're going to get there, and knowing all the details, and more focusing on the professionals you're going to bring into your circle, that can help you get there and help you with those steps. We know what those steps are. Yeah. So I feel like, I get a lot of people that say, well, the internet told me this or that. And I'm like, well, did the internet tell you that they base that on a 750 FICO and yours is 640? Did the internet tell you that?
No, sure didn't.
And sure didn't. So I feel like it's just very important for people to understand that. Get the right professionals around you, and we can help you get where you're going. Know what you want and your timeline, and let's go.
And we'll figure out how to get there.
That's it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. Seriously, I'm so excited for the content. Now I have to go follow you on all the things. And hope you guys all log in and listen to the next episode.
I am excited to continue to listen to yours, and I'm so happy that we connected because I think there's some definite collaboration in our future. So thank you for everything you're doing.
Oh, Awesome. Well, thank you. And we'll see you guys all next time.
Okay, thank you.